9 nannies walked into that mansion confident they could handle 2 troubled boys, every single one left broken. In less than a year, billionaire William Carter had watched his home become a battlefield. His 9-year-old twins Mason and Luke had scared off every nanny he hired. One woman lasted 6 days, another quit before the first weekend was over. The strongest one made it to day 10, then left her resignation letter on the kitchen counter and disappeared without saying goodbye. The boys were not loud in a normal way. They were careful, cold, strategic. They studied every new adult who entered the house, found the weak spot and pressed hard until that person gave up. A locked door, food dumped on the floor, cleaning supplies hidden, shoes ruined. Every trick carried the same silent question: are you going to leave us too? William told himself the right nanny would come eventually. He wrote checks. He called agencies. He replaced one woman with another. But deep down he knew the truth. The problem was not only the boys, it was him. Then one rainy Tuesday morning, Clara Bennett arrived at the front gate with a backpack in one hand and her 5-year-old son Noah holding the other. She was not a nanny. She was the new housekeeper. Calm, quiet, steady. William barely expected her to last a week. But 72 hours later he came home and stopped cold in the doorway. Mason and Luke, the same boys who had made grown women cry, were sitting on the living room floor gently teaching little Noah how to build a tower of blocks. No screaming. No destruction. Just 3 children, and the first sign that something in that wounded house was finally beginning to heal. William Carter did not understand his own sons. And that was the part no magazine article ever printed. To the outside world, William had everything. A glass-walled mansion in the hills outside Nashville, Tennessee, a private driveway longer than most neighborhood streets. A venture capital firm that had turned small companies into million-dollar machines. Tailored suits. Quiet assistants. A name that made bankers stand a little straighter when he walked into the room. But inside his own home, William was losing. Not in business. Not in money. In fatherhood. Every evening he returned to that enormous house and heard the same sounds before he even loosened his tie. Something crashing upstairs. A door slamming. One of the boys shouting, then the other laughing. Sometimes silence was worse. Silence usually meant Mason and Luke were planning something. They had not always been that way. 3 years earlier, Mason and Luke Carter were just 2 wild, funny, muddy-kneed little boys. They ran through the yard with toy swords. They spilled cereal. They tracked grass into the kitchen. They fought over the blue cup and then fell asleep on the same couch under the same blanket. They were loud. They were messy. They were children. Then their mother Vanessa left. She did not disappear overnight. That would have been easier to explain. No, Vanessa packed slowly, carefully. A suitcase in the guest room. A few dresses gone from the closet. Phone calls taken behind closed doors. A new man William never spoke about. A new life waiting for her in Seattle. One morning, she kissed the boys on their foreheads, promised she would call, and stepped out of the house with her bags. Mason stood in the upstairs window and watched the black car roll down the driveway. Luke stood beside him holding the dinosaur blanket he had slept with since he was 3. Neither boy cried at first. That came later. That night, Luke asked if Mommy was coming back for dinner. William said, "Not tonight." The next morning, Mason asked if she would be home by the weekend. William said, "We'll see." By the end of the month, both boys had stopped asking. That was when the house changed. At first, the damage was small. A broken picture frame. A spilled glass of juice that nobody admitted touching. A school folder torn in half. William thought it was a phase. He told himself boys acted out, children adjusted, time fixed things. But time did not fix Mason and Luke. Time taught them something else. People leave. Adults promise things and leave anyway. So the boys made a decision the way only wounded children can make one. If someone was going to leave, they would make it happen first. They would push, test, attack. They would prove the ending before it had a chance to hurt them. The first nanny came with 15 years of experience and a binder full of schedules. Mason locked her outside on the back patio while rain beat down on the glass doors. Luke stood inside eating crackers and watching her knock. She lasted 6 days. The second nanny said she believed in firm boundaries. On her first night, the boys switched every label in the pantry, poured maple syrup into her shoes, and told her there was a snake in the laundry room. There was no snake. Just one of Luke's rubber toys placed carefully under a towel. She quit before Sunday breakfast. The third nanny tried kindness. She baked cookies. She made reward charts. She brought stickers. Mason smiled at her, took the chart, and ripped it down the middle. Luke ate the cookies and said, "You're still leaving?" She did not answer. By day 8, she was crying in the downstairs bathroom with the fan running so no one would hear. William heard anyway. He stood outside the bathroom door for 3 full seconds, his hand raised as if he might knock. Then his phone buzzed. He looked down. A deal in Dallas needed his approval. He walked away. That was the kind of father he had become. Not cruel, not loud, not drunk, not violent. Just absent. Present enough to pay for help. Absent enough not to become help. He signed checks. He approved agency replacements. He read short reports from the household manager as if his sons were a troubled investment that needed a better strategy. Mason refused dinner. Luke broke a lamp. The new nanny resigned. William would nod, rub his forehead and say, "Find someone else. Find someone else." Those 3 words became the family motto. No one said it out loud. They did not need to. The boys heard it in every new set of footsteps. Every new woman at the door. Every forced smile. Every bright voice saying, "Hi boys. I'm excited to meet you." Mason and Luke learned to look at adults the way soldiers look at enemy lines. Where's the weakness? What scares this one? How fast can we make her leave? And they were good at it. Too good. They noticed everything. The nanny who hated mess. The nanny who feared being disliked. The nanny who needed control. The nanny who cried when children yelled. The nanny who checked her phone whenever she felt overwhelmed. They watched. They waited. Then they struck. A glass of milk spilled across paperwork. A dead phone hidden in a freezer. A bedroom door blocked with a chair. A whisper sharp enough to cut, "Our mom left. You will too." That sentence did more damage than any prank. Because it was not just cruelty. It was a confession wearing armor. William did not know what to do with that kind of pain. He could negotiate contracts worth $80 million. He could read a boardroom in 10 seconds. He could tell when a founder was lying before the second slide of a pitch deck. But when his sons looked at him with flat, angry eyes, he became helpless. So he hid behind work. He took calls in his office with the door closed. He ate dinner after the boys were asleep. He told himself stability meant keeping the house running, keeping the tuition paid, keeping food in the refrigerator and lights in every room. But children do not measure love in square feet. They measure it in who sits beside them when they fall apart. And William had not sat beside them in a very long time. One evening, after the 7th nanny quit, the house went quiet. Too quiet. William found Mason and Luke in their mother's old sitting room. The room nobody used anymore. Vanessa's piano still stood by the window, covered with a thin layer of dust. A framed photo sat face down on the side table. Mason was on the floor with a screwdriver. Luke was holding the frame. The glass had been cracked. William stepped into the room and said, "What are you doing?" Mason did not look up. "Fixing it." "You broke it." Luke's face hardened. It was already broken. William opened his mouth. No words came. Because the boy was not talking about the frame. For 1 second the truth stood in the room with all 3 of them. Heavy, sharp, impossible to ignore. Then William's phone rang. He answered it. Mason laughed once. Cold and small. Luke put the frame down and walked out. That night William sat alone in his office until after midnight. The phone was silent. The house was still. On his desk were 2 files, a term sheet for a medical startup and a resignation letter from the latest nanny. He read the first file twice. He could not finish the second. At the bottom of the letter the nanny had written one sentence by hand. "Those boys are not bad. They are heartbroken." William stared at it for a long time. Heartbroken. The word irritated him at first. It sounded soft. Excusing. Too simple for the chaos those boys created. Then he remembered Luke at the window. Mason with the broken frame. The question they no longer asked. "Is Mom coming back?" William leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. For the first time he allowed himself to think the thing he had avoided for 3 years. Maybe the boys were not trying to destroy the house. Maybe they were trying to make someone finally notice that they had already been destroyed. The next morning the agency called about a new housekeeper. Not a nanny. A housekeeper. Her name was Clara Bennett. She had one condition. Her little boy came with her. William almost said no. He almost told the assistant to find someone simpler, someone without complications, someone who would not bring another child into a home already cracking at the walls. But he was tired. Tired of replacements. Tired of reports. Tired of pretending this was normal. So he approved it without asking many questions. He did not know that Clara would not walk into that mansion like an employee desperate to please him. She would walk in like a woman who had survived storms of her own, and she would see Mason and Luke clearly. Not as monsters. Not as spoiled rich boys. But as 2 children standing at the edge of abandonment, daring the world to leave them one more time. Clara Bennett arrived on a Tuesday morning with rain tapping hard against the iron gate like a warning. She did not come in a black car. She did not wear a uniform. She did not carry a folder full of certificates or a smile polished for rich people. She came on the city bus, then walked the last quarter-mile under a gray sky, one hand holding a worn canvas backpack, the other wrapped around the small fingers of her 5-year-old son Noah. The Carter mansion rose behind the gate like something from another world. 3 stories of pale stone, tall windows, wide steps, a lawn so green it looked painted. Rainwater ran along the driveway in thin silver streams. Somewhere beyond the house hidden sprinklers clicked even though the sky was already pouring. Noah stopped walking. His blue dinosaur, the one with one missing eye, was tucked under his arm. His sneakers were damp. His brown curls stuck to his forehead. He looked up at the mansion and whispered, "Mom, it's too big." Clara looked down at him. She did not laugh. She did not tell him not to be scared. She just squeezed his hand once and said, "It's only a house, baby. Big doesn't mean strong." Then she pressed the call button at the gate. Inside the mansion, William Carter was already annoyed. He stood near the front window in a charcoal suit, phone in one hand, coffee untouched in the other. He had a meeting in 40 minutes. A conference call in 15. 3 unread messages from his assistant. 1 from the agency. New housekeeper arriving this morning. Name Clara Bennett. Condition approved, child accompanies her. William had approved it the night before with half his mind elsewhere. Now seeing the small boy at the gate, he regretted it. Another complication? Another moving piece in a house already full of broken ones. He opened the front door before Clara reached the steps. Cold air rushed out from the foyer. Warm rain rushed in. For a moment nobody spoke. William looked at Clara first. Late 30s. Plain navy coat. Hair pulled back. No jewelry except a thin silver cross at her neck. Her face was calm but not soft in the weak way people mistook for kindness. It was the calm of someone who had carried heavy things and learned not to drop them. Then William looked at Noah. The boy moved half a step behind his mother. William's jaw tightened. The agency didn't mention a child would be coming inside the house every day. Clara held his gaze. "They did," she said. "And you approved it." The words were simple. No apology. No challenge. Just truth placed gently on the floor between them. William blinked once. Most people explained themselves to him. Too much? Too fast. They filled silence because his money made them nervous. Clara did not fill anything. Rainwater dripped from the edge of her coat onto the marble entryway. Noah's dinosaur made a tiny squeak as he squeezed it. William exhaled through his nose. "This house has rules." "I expect it does. My sons are difficult." "I read that." William studied her again. "You read the file?" "Yes." "All of it?" "Yes." "And you still came?" Clara glanced briefly toward the staircase where the faint thud of something heavy, hitting a wall, had just echoed down. Then she looked back at William. "I've worked in difficult homes, Mr. Carter. My sons are not a cleaning problem." "No," Clara said. "They're children." The answer landed harder than it should have. William's face closed. For a second his pride stepped forward before his heart could. He wanted to remind her that she was not there to diagnose his family. She was there to clean floors, manage laundry, keep order in the parts of the house no one noticed unless they failed. But upstairs another crash sounded. Then laughter. Sharp. Twin laughter. William looked away first. "The boys are upstairs," he said. "Mason and Luke. Don't engage unless you have to. Don't let Noah wander. Don't leave valuables out. If anything happens, tell the house manager." Clara nodded once. Noah tugged at her sleeve. "Mom." She bent slightly. "Yes, baby? Do they have toys?" William almost laughed at that. Toys? His sons had a playroom full of expensive things they no longer touched unless they were breaking them. Clara answered before William could. "Maybe. But we don't touch what isn't offered." Noah nodded seriously, like this was law. William stepped aside. Clara and Noah entered the mansion. The door closed behind them with a heavy sound. And just like that the house had changed, though no one knew it yet. The foyer smelled of lemon polish, old money, and rain-damp wool. A chandelier hung above them, throwing pale light across the marble floor. Family photographs lined one wall. William in a tuxedo at some award dinner. William beside governors and founders. William shaking hands with men whose watches cost more than cars. Then there were pictures of the boys. Younger. Smiling. Mason missing one front tooth. Luke with chocolate on his cheek. Vanessa in the middle of them, laughing at something outside the frame. Noah looked at the photos. "Are those the boys?" "Yes," Clara said quietly. "They look happy." William heard it. He pretended not to. Clara removed her coat, hung it neatly, then helped Noah out of his. She placed their wet shoes on the mat without being told. Every movement was unhurried. Exact. She did not rush to prove she belonged there. That bothered William more than he wanted to admit. People usually hurried in his house. Assistants hurried. Nannies hurried. Contractors hurried. Even guests hurried after realizing the place was less a home than a museum where two angry children had been set loose. Clara moved like time belonged to her. The house manager, Mrs. Ellis, appeared from the hallway, a tired woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a clipboard held against her chest like armor. "You must be Clara." "Yes, ma'am." Mrs. Ellis glanced at Noah, and for the first time that morning her face softened. "And this young man?" "Noah." Noah lifted the dinosaur slightly. "This is Benny." Mrs. Ellis smiled. "Well, good morning, Noah." "Good morning, Benny." From the top of the stairs a voice cut down. "Is that the new maid?" Clara looked up. Two boys stood on the landing. Mason, on the left. Luke on the right. Same height. Same dark hair. Same sharp eyes. But not the same child. Clara saw that immediately. Mason stood forward, chin lifted, daring the world to hit first. Luke stood half a step back, watching everything, storing it. Mason's mouth twisted. "She brought a baby." "I'm 5, Noah said. His voice was small but clear. Luke looked at him. "Still a baby." Noah hugged Benny tighter, but he did not cry. William stepped toward the stairs. "Boys." One word. Flat, tired, useless. Mason did not even look at his father. He looked at Clara. "You're not staying." Mrs. Ellis stiffened. William's hand tightened around his phone, but Clara only looked up at the boys with that same deep-water calm. "Maybe not," she said. "Maybe I am." Mason frowned. That was not the answer he expected. Adults usually said bright things. "Of course I'm staying. We're going to be great friends. You don't scare me." "Lies, all of them." Clara gave him no lie to attack. Luke leaned on the railing. "You know what happened to the last one?" "I read enough." She cried. Clara nodded once. "That must have been a hard day for everyone." Mason's eyes narrowed. "She was stupid." "No," Clara said. "She was overwhelmed." Silence. Even William looked at her then. Not because the words were dramatic. Because they were not. They were clean, measured, impossible to twist. Clara turned to Mrs. Ellis. "Where would you like me to start?" Mrs. Ellis blinked, almost grateful for the return to ordinary things. "Kitchen first. Then laundry. The upstairs hall if there's time." "There will be time," Clara said. She took Noah's hand and began walking toward the kitchen. Mason called after her, louder this time. "Hey, maid." Clara stopped. Slowly she turned. "My name is Mrs. Bennett," she said. "You may call me that." Mason smiled, pleased to have found a crack. "My dad pays you. I can call you whatever I want." William's face flushed. "Mason, enough." But Clara raised one hand slightly. Not to stop William. To calm the room. Then she looked at Mason and said, "Your father pays me to work in this house. He does not pay me to forget my name." No one moved. No one breathed too loudly. For the first time in a long time, Mason Carter had thrown a match and watched it fail to catch fire. Luke's eyes flicked to his brother. Noah looked up at his mother like she had just moved a mountain without touching it. Clara turned and continued down the hallway. No lecture. No victory. No raised voice. Just forward motion. In the kitchen, everything was spotless and somehow cold. Stainless steel, white counters. A bowl of green apples nobody had touched. Clara set her backpack on a chair and took out a coloring book, a small box of crayons, and a plastic container of crackers. Noah climbed into a chair at the corner of the breakfast table. "You stay here where I can see you," Clara said. "Yes, Mom." "You use quiet hands." "Yes, Mom." "You don't go looking for trouble." Noah thought about that. "What if trouble comes looking for me?" Clara paused. Then she kissed the top of his head. "Then you stay kind. But you stay close." He nodded and opened the coloring book. Clara rolled up her sleeves. Rain tapped against the kitchen windows. Somewhere upstairs a door slammed again. William's voice came and went in the hallway, already swallowed by work. Clara looked around the enormous kitchen, then toward the staircase. She knew homes like this. Not this rich, maybe. Not this grand. But she knew houses where pain wore clean clothes. Where children acted cruel because nobody had taught them what to do with grief. Where adults mistook quiet rooms for peaceful ones. She had not come to fix the Carter family. That was not her job. She had come to work. To keep her son safe. To earn a paycheck. To leave things cleaner than she found them. But as Noah hummed softly over his crayons and the twins' footsteps crept somewhere above them, Clara understood something William had not. This house did not need another person trying to win against Mason and Luke. It needed someone who would not play the game. Someone who would stay calm when they pushed. Someone who would see the wound under the weapon. Someone who would not run at the first sound of breaking glass. Clara picked up a dish towel, wiped a counter that was already clean, and listened. The first test would come soon. She could feel it in the walls. And when it came, she would not shout. She would not chase. She would not beg two wounded boys to behave like nothing had happened to them. She would simply remain. Because sometimes staying is the first miracle a child ever sees. The first test came before lunch. Clara had been in the Carter house for less than 4 hours when Mason walked into the kitchen carrying a full plate of food. Chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. A normal lunch. A normal plate. But nothing about the way he held it was normal. He did not sit. He did not speak. He waited until Clara turned from the sink. Then he looked straight into her eyes and dropped the entire plate onto the freshly mopped floor. The sound cracked through the kitchen. Porcelain hit marble. Mashed potatoes slid under the island. Green beans scattered like little green bullets. Gravy splashed across Clara's shoes. Noah froze at the breakfast table with a red crayon in his hand. Mason stood there, shoulders squared, face empty. Waiting. That was the trap. He was waiting for the gasp. The anger. The sharp voice. The hand on the hip. The speech about respect. The same performance every adult gave right before they packed their bag and left. From the hallway, Luke peeked around the corner watching his brothers work like a scientist waiting for results. Clara looked at the broken plate. Then she looked at Mason. Then she looked at Noah, whose eyes were wide but not frightened. The room held its breath. Clara reached for a towel. "All right," she said quietly. "I'll make you another plate." Mason blinked. That was it. No shouting. No threat to tell his father. No wounded sigh. Clara knelt, picked up the broken pieces of porcelain one by one and placed them in a paper bag. Her movements were careful. Slow, not dramatic. She wiped the gravy from the floor. She cleaned under the edge of the island. She checked twice to make sure there were no sharp pieces where Noah might step. Mason shifted his weight. "You're supposed to be mad." Clara did not look up right away. "I'm busy." Luke's mouth opened slightly. Mason's face hardened. "I did it on purpose." "I know." Now she looked at him. No heat in her eyes. No coldness either. Just truth. "You were hungry enough to bring the plate in here," she said. "So I'll make another." For 1 second Mason looked younger than 9. Only 1 second. Then he crossed his arms. "I won't eat it." "That's your choice." She stood, washed her hands and prepared a second plate. Same chicken. Same potatoes. Same green beans. She set it at the table. Not in front of him like a challenge. Just there. Then she returned to the sink. Mason stared at the plate as if it had insulted him. Noah kept coloring, but his little eyes moved from Mason to Clara and back again. 5 minutes passed. Mason did not eat. But he also did not leave. That was the first crack. Tiny. Almost invisible. But Clara saw it. By Wednesday morning, Luke took his turn. Luke was different from Mason. Mason attacked like a thrown rock. Luke attacked like a locked door. Quiet. Clever. Patient. Clara noticed the cleaning supplies were missing before breakfast. The spray bottles were gone from under the sink. The dust cloths vanished. The broom was not in the pantry. The laundry detergent had been moved. Even the mop bucket was missing. Noah sat at the kitchen table eating toast in small bites. "Mom," he whispered, "did the house eat your things?" Clara almost smiled. "No, baby." From the upstairs hallway came a soft footstep. Luke. Not hiding well enough to be unseen. Hiding just enough to be discovered. Clara opened the cabinet under the sink and found nothing. She checked the pantry. Nothing. She looked behind the laundry room door. Nothing. Then she began searching. Not frantically. Not with muttering under her breath. She searched as if she had all the time in the world. Under beds. Behind curtains. Inside cabinets. In the guest bathroom shower. Behind the piano. One bottle of glass cleaner sat inside a decorative vase. A roll of trash bags had been stuffed behind a row of William's expensive wine catalogs. The broom had been pushed under the sofa so far Clara had to lie on the floor and reach for it with the handle of an umbrella. Luke watched from the stairs. Waiting for frustration. Waiting for her to snap. Waiting for the moment when he could say to himself, "There, that is who you really are." 20 minutes later, Clara carried the last missing cloth back into the kitchen. Luke stood in the doorway now. Arms folded. Face still. Clara placed the supplies neatly on the counter. Then she turned to him. "You're smart," she said. Luke's eyes narrowed. "What?" "You found hiding places I wouldn't have thought of." He stared at her. That was not how this went. Adults did not compliment sabotage. They called it bad behavior. They demanded apologies. They used words like consequences and unacceptable. Clara did not excuse him. But she did not pretend not to see his intelligence either. Luke's jaw tightened. "I was trying to make your job harder." "I know. And now I know to check the vase." Noah giggled softly. Luke looked at him. Noah covered his mouth with both hands, afraid he had done something wrong. But Clara only picked up the broom. "Thank you for the lesson," she said. Luke stood there completely confused. Then he turned and walked away. But he walked slower than before. That afternoon, Clara found one of the spray bottles placed back under the sink. Only one. No note. No apology. Just one bottle returned. She did not mention it. Some victory should not be dragged into the light too soon. Thursday morning brought the boldest test. The laundry room sat at the end of the west hallway past the mudroom and the side entrance. Clara had a basket of towels balanced against her hip and a list in her head. Whites first. Sheets next. Noah's sweater needed a gentle wash. William's shirts were labeled for dry cleaning. She turned the corner and stopped. Mason and Luke stood in front of the laundry room door. Shoulder to shoulder. A wall made of two boys. Mason smiled. "You can't come in." Luke said nothing. His eyes did the talking. Noah stood beside Clara holding Benny the dinosaur by the tail. The basket was heavy. The towels smelled faintly of pool water and expensive soap. Clara adjusted her grip. "I need to start the wash." Mason leaned back against the door. "Too bad." Luke reached behind him and locked it. Click. The sound echoed down the hall. In other homes this would have been the moment. A tired adult. A blocked task. A child daring her to break. Clara looked at the door. Then at the boys. Then at the floor beside the wall. "All right," she said. "I'll wait." Mason frowned. "What?" Clara lowered the basket to the floor and sat beside it. Right there in the hallway. Her back against the wall. Hands folded loosely in her lap. Noah looked at her then sat down too. He opened his coloring book on the floor as if hallways were perfectly normal places to draw dinosaurs. Mason's smile faded. Luke looked at his brother. Neither of them had planned for waiting. They had planned for anger. For pushing. For threats. For Clara to grab the key or call their father or raise her voice until the house filled with that old familiar storm. But she sat. And Noah colored. Rain whispered against the windows. Somewhere in the distance William's voice carried from his office sharp and confident on a business call. In this hallway there was only the scratch of Noah's crayon and the soft hum of the heating system. Clara leaned over and pointed at Noah's picture. "That tail is longer than yesterday." Noah nodded seriously. "He needs balance. That's important. Because if he falls his friends have to help him up." Clara's eyes flicked toward the twins. Just once. Not enough to make it a lesson. Enough for the words to land where they needed to. Mason kicked the baseboard lightly. "You're weird." Clara nodded. "Sometimes." "Aren't you supposed to clean?" "I am." "You're not cleaning." "I'm waiting to clean." Luke finally spoke. "You're wasting time." "No," Clara said. "I'm spending it." That answer irritated Mason more than yelling would have. He pushed off the door and paced 3 steps down the hall. Then back. Luke stayed still but his hand moved to the doorknob behind him. 12 minutes passed. 12 full minutes. For a child 12 minutes is a lifetime when the war does not go as planned. Noah colored the dinosaur purple. Clara rested one hand on the towel basket. Mason's foot stopped tapping. Luke looked at the locked door, then at Clara, then at Noah. Finally, without a word, he turned the lock. Click. He stepped away. Mason glared at him. Luke did not explain. He just walked down the hallway and disappeared around the corner. Mason stayed 1 second longer. "You didn't win," he said. Clara stood and picked up the basket. "I wasn't trying to." That stopped him. His face changed in a way so small most people would have missed it. But Clara did not miss small things. Mason looked at her as if for the first time he was considering the possibility that she was not another enemy standing in the doorway. She entered the laundry room. Noah gathered his crayons. The door remained open behind them. By Thursday evening, the house felt the same to anyone passing through. The floors still shined. William still took calls. Mrs. Ellis still moved quietly with her clipboard. Mason still slammed doors. Luke still watched from corners. But underneath the noise something had shifted. The boys had thrown their first attacks. And Clara had not thrown anything back. No one asked her to. No one thanked her. She just did it. She cleaned the mess. She replaced the plate. She found the supplies. She sat on the floor and waited. Not because she was weak. Because she understood what William did not yet understand. Mason and Luke were not asking, "Can we defeat you?" They were asking, "Will you leave?" Every broken plate was the same question. Every hidden bottle. Every locked door. Different costumes. Same wound. Are you going to leave like Mom? Are you going to give up like the others? Are we too much? Clara's answer was not a speech. It was not a promise. Promises had already failed those boys. Her answer was a clean floor. A second plate. A quiet hallway. A woman who stayed seated until the locked door opened. By sunset, Mason stood at the kitchen entrance while Clara prepared dinner. He did not come in. He did not speak. He only watched. Luke appeared a few minutes later, pretending he had no reason to be there. Noah sat at the table drawing a crooked purple dinosaur with a long tail. Clara poured 3 cups of water. One for Noah. One placed near the edge of the counter. One set quietly on the table across from him. Luke noticed first. He looked at the cup, then at Clara. She kept cooking. No invitation. No pressure. Just room. After a long moment, Luke walked over, picked up the cup and drank. Mason watched him like he had crossed enemy lines. But Luke did not leave. He sat. Not close to Noah. Not far either. Just close enough to see the dinosaur. Mason stayed in the doorway, arms crossed, fighting something inside himself he did not have words for. The house did not heal that night. Not yet. Healing does not arrive like thunder. Sometimes it comes like a cup of water placed quietly on a counter. Sometimes, it looks like a boy sitting down and not knowing why. Sometimes it begins with a woman who refuses to be pulled into a war 2 children never wanted to fight in the first place. By Friday evening, Noah had become the smallest person in the Carter mansion. And somehow, the bravest. He did not know it. He did not walk around like a hero. He did not make speeches. He did not try to fix Mason and Luke. He did not even understand half of what had happened in that house before he arrived. He was 5. He liked crackers, dinosaurs, red crayons, and sitting close enough to his mother that he could touch her sleeve when the world felt too big. But that was exactly why the twins did not know what to do with him. Adults came into the Carter house carrying plans. Noah came carrying Benny, his one-eyed blue dinosaur. Adults asked the boys to behave. Noah asked, "Do you want to see my drawing?" Adults watched for trouble. Noah watched for blocks, toy trucks, and places where sunlight made shapes on the floor. And little by little, without meaning to, he walked straight through the walls Mason and Luke had spent 3 years building. It started in the kitchen. Luke sat across from Noah at the breakfast table, holding the cup of water Clara had left for him. He did not drink much. He just kept one hand around the glass as if standing up would mean losing whatever strange truce had formed in the room. Noah had his coloring book open. On the page was a crooked dinosaur with a long purple tail, green spikes, and teeth too big for its face. Luke stared at it for almost a full minute before he spoke. "That doesn't look like a real dinosaur." Noah looked up. "I know." Luke blinked. "Then why'd you draw it like that?" "Because he's friendly." Mason, still in the doorway, scoffed. "Dinosaurs aren't friendly. This one is." "That's stupid." Noah considered that. Not offended. Just thinking. Then he said maybe he learned. For some reason, the room went quiet. Clara did not turn around from the stove. She kept stirring the soup like she had heard nothing at all. But she had heard everything. Luke looked down at the drawing again. "What's his name?" Noah smiled. "Benny has a cousin named Max." He held up the blue dinosaur. "This is Benny. The drawing is Max." Luke's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. Then he caught himself and looked away. Mason saw it. "You like baby drawings now?" Luke's face closed again. "I'm bored." But he did not leave. That mattered. The next day, rain cleared from the sky and pale Tennessee sunlight poured through the tall windows of the living room. The mansion felt less gray, though only a little. Clara was folding towels near the laundry room. Mrs. Ellis was in the pantry making a grocery list. William was behind his office door speaking in the clipped voice he used when money was on the line. Noah sat alone on the living room rug with a box of wooden blocks. They were expensive blocks. Smooth, polished, perfectly cut. The kind adults bought because they looked beautiful in a catalog, not because children loved them. Mason and Luke had not touched them in years. Noah did not know that. To him, blocks were blocks. He began building a tower. 1 block. Then another. Then a third. His tongue peeked out slightly from the corner of his mouth. His hand moved slowly. Carefully. Every time the tower leaned, he placed one palm beside it and whispered, "Easy. Easy." Luke walked past first. Then stopped. He looked toward the hallway as if making sure no one saw him caring. "What are you doing?" Noah did not look up. "Building a tower. It's crooked." "I know. It's going to fall. Maybe. You need the big blocks on the bottom." Noah paused. Then he picked up the top block and held it out. "Can you show me?" Luke froze. It was a simple question. Too simple to defend against. No adult had asked Luke to show them anything lately. Adults told. Adults corrected. Adults watched him like a problem waiting to happen. Noah just held out a block. Luke stepped closer. Mason appeared at the far end of the room. "What are you doing?" "Nothing," Luke said. But his hand had already taken the block. He crouched beside Noah, pulled 3 smaller pieces away and set the thick square ones underneath. Like this, he said. If the bottom is weak, the whole thing falls. Noah nodded like Luke had given him a great secret. Mason came closer, pretending not to care. That's still wrong, he said. Luke shot him a look. Then you do it. Mason hesitated. A week earlier, he would have kicked the whole thing down. A week earlier, he would have laughed when Noah's face crumpled. A week earlier, destruction would have been easier than joining. But Noah looked up at him with wide, unguarded eyes. Do you know towers too? Mason swallowed. His hands moved into his pockets. Everybody knows towers. Can you help? No one asked him to be good. No one asked him to apologize. No one asked him to prove he was not angry. Noah just made room. That was different. Mason crouched on the other side. Move that one, he said, pointing. It's too skinny. Noah moved it. No, not there. Here. Noah moved it again. Luke leaned forward. If you put 2 flat ones across, it makes a bridge. A bridge? Noah asked. For the top. Mason picked up 2 long blocks and placed them carefully across the middle layer. Carefully. That was the word that would have stopped William in his tracks if he had seen it right then. Mason Carter, the boy who shattered plates and slammed doors, placed a block with the focus of a surgeon. Luke steadied the side with 1 finger. Noah held his breath. The tower stood. For 3 seconds nobody spoke. Then Noah whispered, "We did it. We. Not me. Not you. We." The word landed softly, but it landed deep. Mason looked at the tower. Luke looked at Noah. Noah grinned as if he had just discovered buried treasure. From the doorway, Clara stood with a folded towel in her hands. She did not move. She barely breathed. Because she knew the danger of making a sacred thing feel watched. So she stayed quiet. She let the moment live. Mason reached for another block. "We can make it taller." Luke nodded. "But not too fast." Noah whispered, "Easy, easy." And that became their rhythm. Mason chose the base pieces. Luke corrected the balance. Noah placed the small blocks on top with both hands trembling from concentration. The house around them continued as always. Phones rang. Doors opened. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere, William gave instructions to men who feared disappointing him. But in the living room, 3 boys built something fragile and impossible. Not just a tower. A beginning. Later that afternoon, Noah found a patch of dirt near the side garden where the landscapers had removed old shrubs. He knelt beside it, poking the soil with a stick. Mason watched from the patio. "You're going to get dirty." Noah looked at his hands. "I know." Luke stood beside Mason. "Why are you digging?" "I'm making a dinosaur home." Mason rolled his eyes. "Dinosaurs are dead." Noah nodded. "Then it can be for pretend dinosaurs." Luke stepped off the patio. His shoes sank slightly into the damp earth. "Your hole is too shallow." Noah handed him the stick. Luke took it. Then Mason came down too, because being left out suddenly felt worse than pretending not to care. Within 10 minutes, the dinosaur home had become a whole world. A stick fence. Pebble paths. Leaf beds. A small tunnel made from bark. Noah placed Benny in the middle like a king returning to his castle. Mason found a flat stone and said it was a table. Luke used 2 twigs to make a gate. Clara watched from the kitchen window. Her hand rested against the sink. She saw mud on Mason's knees. She saw Luke's sleeves pushed up. She saw Noah laughing without fear. And she saw something else. The twins were not performing. They were not testing. They were playing. Really playing? For the first time since she had entered the house, they looked like children instead of guards at a broken border. That evening, when William came home, he noticed the mud first. Mason's shoes by the back door. Luke's hands not fully clean. A streak of dirt on Noah's cheek. His first instinct was to ask what happened. His second instinct was to assume something had gone wrong. Then he heard it. Laughter. Small. Uneven. But real. He followed the sound to the living room and stopped at the doorway. The block tower was nearly 3 feet tall now. Mason sat cross-legged on the rug, one hand hovering near the base. Luke leaned in close, whispering instructions. Noah stood on his knees, placing the final block on top. "No, wait," Mason said. "Use both hands." "I am." "Slow," Luke warned. Noah lowered the block. The tower wobbled. All 3 boys gasped. Then it held. Noah threw both arms into the air. Mason laughed. Luke laughed too. Not a sharp laugh. Not a cruel laugh. A child's laugh. William felt something inside his chest tighten so suddenly he almost stepped back. These were the same boys who had made grown women cry. The same boys who turned breakfast into a battlefield. The same boys who looked at every adult as if betrayal was only a matter of time. Now they were sitting on the floor teaching a 5-year-old how to build a tower. With patience. With care. with their voices low. As if they had never destroyed anything in their lives, Clara entered behind him carrying a basket of folded clothes. She saw his face. For once William had no business expression ready, no command, no analysis, no polished answer. Only shock. And underneath it, pain. Because the scene in front of him was beautiful. And it accused him without saying a word. Noah had done what William had not done in years. He had sat on the floor with the boys. He had entered their world without trying to own it. He had offered them a block instead of a lecture. And somehow that had been enough to open a door. William whispered almost to himself. How? Clara did not answer right away. She watched Mason gently move Noah's hand away from the leaning side of the tower. Then she said softly. He didn't ask them to be different. William looked at her. Clara's voice stayed low. He just gave them somewhere safe to be the way they are. In the living room, the tower leaned again. Mason reached out. Luke steadied the base. Noah held his breath. Together they saved it. No one clapped. No one made a speech. No one called it healing. But that was what it was. Not the big kind people imagine. Not music swelling. Not tears under a spotlight. Just 3 boys on a rug. A crooked tower. A little dinosaur watching from the floor. And a father standing in the doorway realizing that the smallest child in the house had just taught everyone what love looked like when it did not force its way in. It simply sat down, picked up a block, and stayed. William Carter stood in the doorway and watched his son save a leaning tower made of blocks. Not a company. Not a deal. Not a reputation. A toy tower. And somehow it felt like the most important thing that had happened in that house in 3 years. Mason had one hand near the base, fingers spread wide, his body tense with concentration. Luke crouched on the other side, whispering, "Don't touch the middle, it'll shift." Noah knelt between them with Benny the dinosaur tucked against his knee, waiting for permission to place the next block. Noah looked at Mason. Now. Mason studied the tower like an engineer inspecting a bridge. Not yet. Luke leaned closer. Turn it sideways. Noah turned the block. Mason nodded once. Okay, slow. Noah lowered it with both hands. The tower trembled. All 3 boys froze. William froze too. Then the tower held. Noah gasped. We did it. Mason smiled. Not the cruel little smile William had seen too many times. Not the sharp smile he used before ruining someone's day. A real one. Small. Surprised. Almost embarrassed to be caught on his face. Luke smiled too, then quickly looked down as if joy were something private. William felt the breath leave his chest. He had seen his sons at award ceremonies, school meetings, birthday parties, family photo sessions. He had seen them dressed in pressed shirts and expensive shoes. He had seen them sit beside him in restaurants where waiters folded napkins onto their laps. But he had not seen them like this. Focused. Gentle. Patient. Alive. Clara stepped beside him with the basket of folded laundry against her hip. She said nothing at first. She only looked at the boys, then at William. He did not turn away. For once he did not reach for his phone. For once he did not hide behind a message, a meeting, an excuse. He just stood there with the truth pressing against his ribs. A 5-year-old had done what he could not. That thought burned. Noah had not hired experts. He had not built a behavior plan. He had not negotiated, punished, bribed, or lectured. He had sat on the floor. He had asked for help. He had given Mason and Luke a place to be useful without making them prove they deserved it. William's throat tightened. How did he do that? He whispered. Clara kept her voice low. He didn't try to control them. William looked at her. The answer was simple enough to feel insulting. Clara continued. He invited them. In the living room, Noah clapped once, then covered his own mouth because the tower wobbled again. Mason whispered, "Don't breathe so hard." Noah whispered back, "I'm trying." Luke reached out, steadying one corner with one finger. William watched that finger. So careful. So protective. This was the same boy who had hidden cleaning supplies under beds and inside cabinets. The same boy who could find a weakness in an adult within minutes. Now Luke was using that same sharp attention to protect something fragile. William swallowed. "They never listened to me," he said. Clara did not answer quickly. That was one of the things about her that unsettled him. She did not rush to comfort a person just because the silence hurt. Finally she said, "Do you sit with them long enough to be heard?" The words landed clean. No anger. No judgment. Just a question. William looked back into the room. Mason was telling Noah where to place the next block. Luke was moving pieces into little piles by size. Noah trusted them completely in that reckless way young children trust when no one has taught them not to. William thought of all the nights he had walked past this room. All the nights he had heard noise and kept going. All the dinners eaten alone in his office. All the mornings he had kissed the top of their heads while still reading emails. He had been in the house, but he had not been with them. There was a difference. A brutal one. He stepped back from the doorway. Clara noticed. "Mr. Carter. I need a minute," he said. His voice sounded strange to him, thin, unsteady. He walked down the hall toward his office, but when he reached the door, he did not go in. He stood there, hand on the knob, staring at the polished wood. That room had saved him for 3 years. It had given him a place to be powerful when he felt helpless everywhere else. Inside those walls, people listened. Numbers made sense. Problems came with data. Loss could be measured. Risk could be managed. Children could not. Grief could not. Abandonment could not. He opened the office door. The room was exactly as always. Dark desk, leather chair, screens glowing, contracts stacked in neat piles. A framed magazine cover on the wall called him "The Man Who Sees Tomorrow." William almost laughed. Tomorrow? He had not even seen what was happening upstairs in his own home. His phone buzzed on the desk. He picked it up. A message from his chief operating officer. "Need your approval before the 6 p.m. call. Investors waiting." William stared at it. Investors waiting. Everyone was always waiting for William Carter. Except his sons. They had stopped waiting a long time ago. He put the phone face down. Then he did something he had not done in years. He opened the bottom drawer of his desk and pulled out an old photo album. Vanessa had made it when the boys were babies. William had forgotten it was there, buried under tax documents and insurance files. The cover was blue cloth worn at the corners. He opened it carefully as if the past might break if handled too roughly. The first photo showed Mason and Luke at 6 months old lying on the same blanket, fists in their mouths. Another showed William holding both boys in the hospital. He looked exhausted, terrified, happy. Another showed Vanessa laughing in the backyard while the twins crawled through grass. Then a photo from their 5th birthday. Chocolate cake. Blue frosting. Mason with frosting on his nose. Luke holding up 5 fingers, proud and serious. William touched the edge of the picture. He remembered that day. Not clearly. Not fully. He remembered leaving early for a flight to New York. Vanessa had been angry. "You can miss one meeting," she had said. He had answered, "Not this one." There was always a meeting that could not be missed. Always a call. Always a plane. Always a reason. He turned another page. The boys were 6. Then 7. Then the photos became fewer. By 8, almost none. That was the year Vanessa left. That was the year William stopped taking pictures because every picture showed what was missing. A soft knock came at the office door. He looked up. Clara stood there. Not entering. Not assuming. "The boys are asking for tape," she said. "They want to make flags for the tower." William nodded. "Top drawer in the kitchen." She did not leave. He knew she saw the album. He closed it halfway, then stopped. For some reason he did not want to hide it. "They used to be happy," he said. Clara's face softened, but only a little. "They still can be?" William shook his head. "I don't know how to get them back." "You don't get them back," Clara said. He looked at her. "You meet them where they are now." The office felt smaller. William leaned back in his chair. "They hate me?" "No," Clara said. "They're angry with you." "That sounds the same." "It isn't." He looked away. Clara stepped 1 foot into the room. "Hate gives up. Anger still expects something." That sentence stayed in the air. William felt it move through him slowly. Anger still expects something. He thought of Mason's cold laugh when he answered the phone in the sitting room. Luke's silence at dinner. The broken frame. The words written on the resignation letter. "Those boys are not bad. They are heartbroken." William rubbed both hands over his face. "I thought if I kept the house stable they would be okay." Clara's voice was gentle. "A house can be stable and still feel empty." There it was. The truth said out loud. No screaming. No accusation. Just a door opening in a room William had locked from the inside. He looked toward the hallway. From far away came Noah's voice. "No, Benny can't climb that high. He needs stairs." Then Mason, "Dinosaurs don't use stairs." Then Luke, "This one does. He's short." Noah laughed. Mason laughed with him. William closed his eyes. The sound hurt because it was beautiful. And because it had happened without him. He stood. Clara moved aside. William walked slowly down the hall, not with the confidence he carried into boardrooms but with the careful steps of a man approaching a wounded animal he loved and had failed. At the living room doorway the boys looked up. The laughter stopped. Mason's face changed first. "Guard up." Luke's shoulders tightened. Noah waved. "Mr. Carter, look. We made it bigger." William looked at the tower. It was nearly 4 feet tall now, decorated with little paper flags. One flag had a dinosaur. One had a lightning bolt. One had 3 crooked stick figures standing beside a square that might have been a house. "It's good," William said. His voice was too formal. He heard it. The boys heard it too. Mason looked down. Luke reached for another block. The door was closing. William felt it happening. This was the moment he usually ruined by saying the wrong adult thing. "Be careful. Don't make a mess. Clean this up when you're done." Instead, he swallowed his pride, loosened his tie, and sat down on the rug. The movement shocked everyone. Mason stared at him. Luke froze with a block in his hand. Noah smiled like this made perfect sense. William sat awkwardly, one knee stiff, his expensive pants folding against the floor. He had not sat on a living room rug in years. He did not know where to put his hands. So he held them open. "Can I help?" Mason said nothing. Luke looked at Mason. Noah immediately handed William a block. "You can make the stairs for Benny?" William took the block. It was small in his palm. Ridiculously small. Mason watched him with suspicion. "You don't know how?" William nodded. "You're right," he said. "I don't." That was the second shock. Their father admitting he did not know something. No defense. No authority. No lecture. Just the truth. William looked at Mason. Then Luke. "Maybe you can show me." The room went still. Clara stood in the hallway, laundry basket in her arms, watching the first real bridge appear. Mason's jaw moved like he was chewing on a feeling too large to swallow. Luke spoke first. "Put the flat one down before the tall one." William did it. "No," Mason said sharply. "Not there. It'll tip." William moved it. "Here." Mason leaned forward despite himself. "Closer." William adjusted the block. Luke nodded. "That's better." Noah placed Benny at the bottom of the new stairs. "He likes it." Nobody cried. Nobody apologized. Nobody said the word healing. But William felt something shift inside him, quiet and permanent. He had spent 3 years trying to manage his sons from a distance. Now he understood. They did not need a manager. They needed a father willing to sit on the floor, look foolish, be corrected, and stay anyway. For the first time in a very long time, William Carter did not lead the room. He joined it. And for the first time in a very long time, Mason and Luke led him. That night, dinner did not begin like a miracle. It began with a chair scraping too loudly across the floor. Mason did it on purpose. He pulled the chair back from the dining table with both hands and dragged it slowly across the polished wood until the sound cut through the room like a saw. William Carter looked up. 3 days ago he would have said, "Stop that." 1 week ago he might have called for Mrs. Ellis. 1 month ago he would have ignored it and checked his phone under the table. But tonight he only watched his son. Mason kept his eyes on him, testing. Still testing. Always testing. Luke stood behind the chair next to him, silent, one hand resting on the back as if he might sit, as if he might run, as if both choices were equally dangerous. Noah was already in his seat beside Clara, swinging his small legs under the table. Benny the dinosaur sat on the chair next to him, tucked against the napkin like an honored guest. Clara had made chicken stew, warm bread, roasted carrots, and mashed potatoes. Nothing fancy. Nothing like the catered meals William ordered when investors came over. It smelled like a home instead of a performance. That alone made the room feel strange. William sat at the head of the table. Not in his office. Not at the kitchen island with one eye on his laptop. At the table. With everyone else. His phone was upstairs in his bedroom drawer. Turned off. That small act had felt almost violent when he did it. His thumb hovered over the screen. Messages waited. People needed him. Money was moving. A deal in Dallas was still unresolved. Then he heard Luke laugh from the hallway. A real laugh. William powered the phone down and left it there. Now, he sat under the soft light of the dining room chandelier, trying to look like a father who knew how to have dinner with his children. He did not. But for the first time he was willing to learn. Mason dropped into his chair. Luke sat more quietly. Noah looked at the food and whispered, "It smells like Sunday." Clara smiled a little. "That is a good thing." William reached for the serving spoon, then paused. He looked at Mason. "Would you like stew?" Mason stared at him. It was such a normal question. Too normal. For 3 years food had appeared in front of the boys, plates delivered by nannies, snacks placed by assistants, meals arranged by people William paid to keep the house moving. William could not remember the last time he had served his own son. Mason shrugged. "Whatever." William nodded as if whatever were a real answer. He spooned stew into Mason's bowl. Then Luke's. Then Noah's. Then Clara's. Clara looked at him with quiet surprise, but she said nothing. Mrs. Ellis passed by the doorway and stopped for half a second. Her face changed too. She had worked in that house long enough to know what she was seeing. William Carter serving dinner. His son sitting at the same table. No shouting yet. No broken glass yet. No one running away yet. It was not much. It was everything. They began to eat. For almost 2 minutes, the only sounds were spoons against bowls and rain tapping lightly against the windows. William searched for something to say. A business meeting was easier. A hostile boardroom was easier. Even bad news from a CEO was easier than finding a sentence that would not make his children disappear behind their eyes. Finally, he said, the tower was impressive. Mason kept eating. Luke looked at his bowl. Noah smiled. It almost fell 3 times. Luke murmured, 4. No, Mason said. 3. The first one didn't count. It leaned. It didn't almost fall. It did. Noah looked between them delighted. It was brave. Mason frowned. Towers aren't brave. This one was. William listened. He did not correct. He did not take over. He let the boys argue about a tower as if it were the most serious subject in the world. Because to them maybe it was. Clara passed the bread to Luke. You were very careful with the base? Luke's ears turned red. I just didn't want Noah to mess it up. Noah nodded seriously. He saved it. Luke looked down, but this time he did not deny it. Mason poked at a carrot. William saw the opening. Small. Dangerous. He leaned forward a little. Mason, you were careful too. Mason's spoon stopped. The room tightened. Compliments were not safe for him yet. They sounded like traps. William saw his son's shoulders rise. Defensive. Ready. So he added, I noticed. That was all. No speech. No, I'm proud of you, pushed too early. Just I noticed. Mason looked at him from under his brow. You were watching? Yes. Why? The question came out sharper than the boy meant it to. William could have said, because I'm your father. He could have said, because this is my house. He could have said 100 things that would have closed the door. Instead he set his spoon down. Because I've missed too much. The words entered the room and changed the temperature. Luke stopped eating. Clara's hand stilled near her glass. Noah looked at his stew, sensing the grown-up pain but not understanding its shape. Mason's face went blank. William forced himself not to look away. I have, he continued, voice low. I've missed too much. And I'm sorry. No one moved. Outside, a car passed somewhere beyond the long driveway, its tires hissing over wet pavement. Mason swallowed. Luke's fingers tightened around his spoon. William's heart pounded like he was walking into a courtroom with no defense. He wanted to explain. The company. The divorce. The pressure. How he had been trying to keep everything from collapsing. But the boys did not need his excuses. They needed his truth. So he gave them the smallest piece he could hold steady. I thought keeping the house running was the same as taking care of you. His voice almost broke. It wasn't. Mason looked away first. Luke stared at the table. Noah whispered to Benny, it's okay. Clara touched Noah's shoulder gently. William waited. He did not demand forgiveness. He did not ask, are we okay? They were not okay. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. But the apology sat there between the bowls and bread, plain and real, and for once William did not try to clean it up. Then Mason said, Mom said she'd call. William closed his eyes for 1 second. When he opened them, Mason was staring straight at him. She said every night. Luke's mouth tightened. William nodded slowly. I know. She didn't. No. You said she was busy. I did? She wasn't busy for 3 years. The words hit hard. William deserved them. He took the hit. No, he said. She wasn't. Luke looked up then. You lied? William felt Clara's eyes on him, but she did not rescue him. Good. He did not deserve rescue. Yes, William said. I did. I thought I was protecting you. Mason's voice rose. You were protecting her. There it was. The blade. Clean and deep. William could feel the old instinct rise in him. Defend. Explain. Control the damage. He pushed it down. Maybe fatherhood began there, not with knowing what to say but with not saying the easy wrong thing. You're right, he said. Mason blinked. He had expected a fight. William gave him none. I didn't want you to hate her, William said. And I didn't know what to do with your pain. So I made it smaller when I should have sat with you in it. Luke's eyes filled, but he looked down before anyone could see. Mason's jaw clenched so hard a muscle jumped near his cheek. Noah reached for a piece of bread and quietly placed it on Mason's plate. Mason looked at him. What are you doing? Noah shrugged. Bread helps. For one fragile second no one knew what would happen. Then Luke made a sound. Not quite a laugh. Not quite a sob. Just air escaping from a place too tight. Clara lowered her eyes, hiding a smile. Mason stared at the bread like it was ridiculous. Then he picked it up and took a bite. Dinner continued. Not smoothly. Not perfectly. Mason snapped once when William asked about school. Luke refused carrots. Noah spilled water and whispered, "Sorry, sorry, sorry," until Clara placed a napkin over the puddle and said, "It is only water." But nobody left the table. That was the miracle. Not that everything became beautiful. That nobody ran. After dinner, William stood and began clearing plates. Mason watched him like he had started speaking another language. "We have people for that," he said. William stacked 2 bowls. "I know. Then why are you doing it?" William looked at him. "Because I ate here." Mason did not answer. Luke picked up his own bowl and carried it to the kitchen. He did it fast like he wanted no witness. But William saw. Clara saw. Mason saw too. A moment later, Mason grabbed his plate and followed. No one praised him. No one made a big thing of it. That would have ruined it. In the kitchen, the warm light fell over the counters. Clara washed. William dried. Luke put spoons in the drawer. Noah handed 1 spoon at a time to Mason, who pretended this was annoying but kept taking them. Mrs. Ellis stood at the hallway entrance, one hand pressed to her chest. For years that kitchen had been a place of schedules, staff, and silent damage. Tonight it was crowded. Messy. Human. Later, after Noah had fallen asleep on a small couch in the den, Clara covered him with a knitted blanket. Mason and Luke stood nearby, both pretending they had not been watching. "Does he always sleep like that?" Luke asked. "Like what?" Clara whispered. "With the dinosaur on his face." Clara smiled. "Usually." Mason looked at Noah's small hand curled around Benny. "He's not scared of us." "No," Clara said. "Why?" Clara adjusted the blanket. "Because you haven't given him a reason to be." Mason's face changed. "Not guilt exactly. Something younger. Something softer." Luke whispered, "We give everyone reasons." Clara looked at him. "Maybe you were trying to see who would stay after they had one." Neither boy spoke. From the doorway, William heard it. He had come to say good night and stopped before entering. He looked at his son standing beside the sleeping little boy, and he understood something painful and precious. This was not a fixed family. This was a family learning how not to break the same way twice. That night, William did not return to his office. He sat in the hallway outside the boys' rooms after lights out, back against the wall, tie loose sleeves rolled up. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. Then Mason's door opened a crack. "What are you doing?" William looked up. "Sitting." "Why?" "In case you need me." Mason stared at him. "You're just going to sit there?" "Yes." "That's weird." "I know." Mason almost closed the door. Then he stopped. "Mom used to sit there when we were little." William felt the words pierce him. "I remember." Mason looked down. "Don't come in." "I won't." "But don't leave yet." William nodded. "I won't." The door closed. A few minutes later, Luke's door opened too. "Just an inch?" No words. Then it stayed that way. William sat between the 2 doors until the house went silent. No one asked him to. No one thanked him. He just did it. And somewhere in the dark, in a mansion that had been cold for far too long, 2 boys fell asleep knowing their father was still there. The next morning, the house woke up softer than usual. No doors slammed before breakfast. No one poured juice into a plant. No one hid Clara's cleaning supplies. Mason came downstairs with his hair sticking up on one side. Luke followed behind him, rubbing one eye with the heel of his hand. Noah was already at the kitchen table, drawing Benny wearing a crown. William stood at the stove, badly flipping pancakes. Clara watched from the counter, saying nothing. The first pancake was burned. The second one folded in half. The third landed partly on the stove and partly on the pan. Mason stared at him. "You're terrible at that." William looked down at the ruined pancake. "Yes," he said. "I am." Luke pulled out a chair. "Mrs. Bennet makes them better." "I know." "Then why are you doing it?" William turned the heat down. "Because I wanted to make breakfast." Mason sat slowly. Luke sat too. Noah looked up from his drawing. "Burned pancakes are still pancakes." Mason glanced at him. "That's not true." "It is if you use syrup." Clara turned away, hiding a smile. For 10 minutes, the kitchen almost felt normal. Not perfect. Not healed. But alive. William served pancakes that looked like torn blankets. Mason complained but ate too. Luke cut around the burned edges and pretended not to like them. Noah poured too much syrup and whispered, "It's swimming." William laughed. The sound surprised everyone. Even him. Then the doorbell rang. One deep chime through the house. The kind of sound that made old rooms go still. Mrs. Ellis appeared from the hallway and glanced toward William. "Are you expecting someone, Mr. Carter?" William wiped his hands on a dish towel. "No." The bell rang again. Mason's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Luke looked toward the front hall. Clara felt it before she knew why. A shift. A pressure. Like air changing before a storm. William walked to the foyer. The boys followed at a distance. Clara stayed near Noah, but her eyes tracked every movement. Mrs. Ellis opened the door. And there she stood. Vanessa Carter. 3 years older than the last photograph in the hallway, but still beautiful in the way that made people turn before they meant to. Camel coat. Dark sunglasses. Hair smooth over her shoulders. A leather suitcase beside her. One hand around a phone. The other resting lightly on the handle of her bag as if she were arriving at a hotel where she expected the best room. The foyer froze. William's face changed first. Not anger. Shock. Then something harder. Vanessa. She removed her sunglasses slowly. Hello, William. Her voice was soft, polished, familiar. Mason had gone completely still. Luke's face drained of color. Noah looked from one twin to the other, confused. Vanessa's eyes moved past William and landed on the boys. For 1 second her smile trembled. Then she opened her arms. My babies. Neither boy moved. The words floated in the foyer and fell. Vanessa blinked as if she had expected a scene from a movie. Running feet, tears. Forgiveness before breakfast. Instead, Mason stood rigid beside the staircase. Luke's hand gripped the banister. William turned slightly, putting himself between Vanessa and the boys without fully blocking her. What are you doing here? Vanessa's smile faded. I came to see my sons. You should have called. I did. Your assistant said you were unavailable. You called my office. I didn't have your personal number anymore. William stared at her. That was not true. They both knew it. Mason's voice came out flat. You know the house number. Vanessa looked at him. The moment hit her harder than she expected. Mason was taller now. His face had changed, the roundness was gone. His eyes looked older than a child's eyes should. Mason, she said. He did not answer. She looked at Luke. Luke, sweetheart. Luke looked down. Vanessa took one step forward. Both boys stepped back. It was small. But everyone saw it. Vanessa stopped. Pain crossed her face, but behind it there was something else. Embarrassment. Maybe frustration. Maybe surprise that motherhood did not still open every locked door. William lowered his voice. Not here. Vanessa lifted her chin. Then where, William? You've made it impossible to reach them. His jaw tightened. I made it impossible. She looked toward Clara then. Only for a second. But long enough. Her eyes moved over Clara's simple dress, her apron, Noah's coloring book tucked under one arm. Who is this? Clara did not step forward. William answered, Mrs. Bennett works here. Vanessa's gaze dropped to Noah. And the child? My son, Clara said calmly. Vanessa looked back at William with a faint, sharp smile. So strangers' children live in my house now. Mason's head snapped up. Luke's eyes narrowed. Clara's face remained still, but Noah moved closer to her leg. William's voice went cold. This is not your house. Vanessa laughed once, but it had no warmth. That is exactly what I came to discuss. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded document. William did not take it. Mrs. Ellis did. Her hands trembled slightly as she passed it to him. William opened the paper. His eyes moved across the page. Then stopped. Clara watched his face. The color left it slowly. What is this? Vanessa stood straighter. A petition for custody review. The words struck the foyer like glass breaking. Mason whispered. What? Luke's hand tightened around the railing until his knuckles went white. Vanessa turned toward them quickly. Boys, listen to me. I know this is sudden. Mason's voice cracked. You're taking us? I'm your mother. You left. The words came out before anyone could stop them. Vanessa flinched. Luke looked at her, then really looked at her. You moved away. I had to rebuild my life. Mason's face twisted. So did we. Silence. William folded the paper slowly. His voice was low now. Dangerous. You have been gone for 3 years. I have been in contact. With whom? I sent gifts. Mason laughed. It was not a child's laugh. It was the sound of something snapping. You sent a drone for our birthday. Luke was scared of drones. Vanessa looked at Luke. I didn't know that. No, Luke said. You didn't. The room went quiet again. Noah slipped his small hand into Clara's. Vanessa looked suddenly overwhelmed, but she did not retreat. She had come prepared for William's anger. She had not prepared for her son's memory. I made mistakes, she said. I know that. But I am their mother and I have a right to be part of their lives. William's grip tightened around the petition. A right is not the same as a place. Her eyes flashed. Don't lecture me about parenting. How many nannies quit? William, 8, 9. I heard stories. Mason stiffened. Luke looked away. William's shame crossed his face, but he did not deny it. Vanessa stepped into that opening. You buried yourself in work and left strangers to raise them. Now you want to pretend this house is stable because a housekeeper has been here a few days. Clara's eyes lifted. She still said nothing. William took one step closer to Vanessa. This house is changing. Vanessa smiled sadly. That is not a legal argument. No, William said. It is a fact. She held his gaze. Then prove it. The sentence landed like a challenge. William looked down at the custody petition again. A court date. A review request. Claims of emotional neglect. Claims of household instability. Claims that the boys would benefit from maternal reunification in a structured environment. Structured. William almost laughed at the cruelty of that word. Vanessa had missed birthdays, school conferences, fevers, nightmares. She had missed Mason breaking his arm, Luke losing his first molar. Christmas mornings. Bad dreams. The long, ugly silence after she stopped calling. Now she had returned with a lawyer and a phrase. Structured environment? Mason took a step back from the stairs. I'm not going with you. Vanessa's face softened too quickly. Sweetheart, no one is taking you today. Today? Luke's voice was barely above a whisper. William turned at once. That one word had cut through him. Today. Because children hear what adults hide. Vanessa looked at Luke with tears in her eyes now. Real ones maybe. Too late maybe. Both things could be true. I want time with you, she said. I want to fix what happened. Mason shook his head. You can't. Mason. You can't just come back and say, my baby's like we're still little. His voice rose. We're not little. Luke whispered, you don't know us. That broke the room. Vanessa's mouth opened. No words came out. For once, the polished woman at the door had nothing polished left to say. William looked at his sons. He saw Mason's rage. Luke's fear. The old wound split open right there on the marble floor. He wanted to order Vanessa out. He wanted to tear the paper in half. He wanted to promise the boys no court, no lawyers, no one could touch them. But he had lied before to protect them. He would not lie again. So he stepped toward them and lowered himself slightly, meeting their eyes. I'm going to handle this, he said. But I need to tell you the truth. Mason's breathing was hard. Luke looked like he might be sick. William said, your mother has asked the court to review custody. That means a judge will listen. It does not mean you are leaving this house today. It does not mean anyone can just take you. Mason stared at him. Can they make us go? William's chest tightened. I will do everything I can to make sure your voices are heard. That's not an answer. No, William said quietly. It isn't. Mason's eyes filled with furious tears. He turned and ran upstairs. Luke followed him without looking back. A door slammed. Then another. The house shook with it. Vanessa covered her mouth. William stood slowly. Whatever softness had been in the morning was gone. The storm had entered. And this time it wore perfume and carried legal papers. Clara bent down beside Noah, whose eyes were wide and wet. Go to the kitchen with Mrs. Ellis, baby. Noah whispered. Are Mason and Luke leaving? Clara touched his cheek. Not right now. Again, no lie. Noah nodded and went with Mrs. Ellis, though he looked back twice. Vanessa watched him go. Then she looked at Clara. You seem very involved for someone who works here. Clara met her eyes. I'm involved with children who are hurting. Vanessa's face tightened. They are my children. Clara's voice remained calm. Then you should know where the hurt is. William looked at Clara then. It was the first time he had heard steel under her softness. Vanessa picked up her suitcase handle. I'll be staying in town. My attorney will contact yours. William opened the door. The rain had started again. Of course it had. Vanessa stepped onto the porch, then turned back. I did love them, she said. William looked at her. For a moment, he saw the woman from the old photographs. The one laughing in the backyard. The one holding two babies at once. The one before everything broke. I believe you did, he said. Her eyes softened. Then William finished. But love that leaves still leaves damage. Vanessa had no answer. She walked into the rain. The black car at the end of the drive opened its door, swallowed her, and pulled away. William stood in the open doorway until the car disappeared. Behind him, the house was silent. Too silent. Clara came to stand beside him. Neither spoke for several seconds. Then from upstairs came the sound of something breaking. Mason. William closed his eyes. The old William would have called for someone else. The old William would have let a nanny, a housekeeper, a therapist, anyone walk into the fire first. Not this time. He turned from the door and started toward the stairs. Clara did not stop him. At the first step, he paused and looked back. I don't know what to say. Clara held his gaze. Then start by showing up. William nodded once. Then he climbed the stairs toward the sound of his son's breaking heart. The sound upstairs was not just breaking glass, it was panic. William reached the hallway outside Mason's room and found a picture frame shattered against the wall. The photo inside had slipped halfway out. Vanessa, younger, smiling, holding Mason and Luke when they were 6. Everyone in the picture looked sunlit. Everyone looked safe. Mason stood in the middle of the room, chest rising and falling fast. Luke sat on the edge of the bed with both hands pressed between his knees, staring at the broken glass like it might cut him from across the room. William stopped at the doorway. He wanted to say, "Calm down." He didn't. He wanted to say, "Don't throw things." He didn't. He wanted to say, "Everything will be okay." He could not. So he stepped inside, slowly crouched down and began picking up the largest pieces of glass with his bare hands. Mason snapped, "Don't touch it." William froze up. Mason's eyes were red. "It's mine." William looked at the picture. Then back at his son. "All right," he said softly. "I won't." He stood and backed away. No argument. No control. That made Mason angrier somehow. "She doesn't get to do that," he said. His voice cracked on the last word. "She doesn't get to come back." Luke whispered, "What if the judge makes us go?" William looked at him. There it was again. The question with teeth. William sat on the floor near the door, not too close, not too far. "I'm going to fight for you," he said. Mason laughed bitterly. Now, the word hit him harder than any accusation Vanessa had made. Now. After 3 years, after 9 nannies. After all the nights the boys had learned to sleep with their pain locked behind their teeth. William lowered his eyes. "Yes," he said. "Now." Mason stared at him. William kept going even though each word felt like walking barefoot over the glass on the floor. "I should have fought sooner. Not in court. Here. In this house. At this door. At dinner. When you stopped asking if she was coming home. When Luke stopped sleeping through the night. When you started breaking things so I would finally look up." Luke's face crumpled, but he turned away quickly. Mason did not move. William's voice dropped. "I see it now." For a long moment nobody spoke. Then Clara appeared at the doorway holding a dustpan, a small broom and a pair of gloves. She did not enter. She looked at Mason first. "May I clean the glass?" Mason wiped his face with his sleeve. "I don't care." But Clara did not move. "I asked if I may." That made him look at her. His answer came out smaller. "Yeah." Only then did she step inside. Noah stood behind her in the hallway, clutching Benny under his chin. His eyes were wide, but Clara had told him to stay back and he did. Clara knelt. She put on the gloves. She swept carefully around the photograph, then picked it up by the edges and placed it on Mason's desk. She did not comment on Vanessa's face. She did not say, "Your mother loves you." She did not say, "You shouldn't be angry." She only made the floor safe to walk on. Sometimes that was all love could do first. Make the floor safe. That night, after the boys finally closed their doors, Clara sat at the kitchen table with a spiral notebook. The house was quiet except for the dishwasher humming and rain tapping the windows. William came downstairs just after midnight. He found her writing. Not casually. Carefully. Each line dated. Each word neat. "What is that?" he asked. Clara looked up. For a moment she seemed to decide how much truth he could handle. Then she turned the notebook slightly so he could see. Notes. He stepped closer. At the top of the page was written, Friday 7:40 p.m. Mason broke framed photograph after mother's unexpected visit. No aggression toward people. Expressed fear and anger. Luke asked if court could force removal from home. Mr. Carter sat with them and answered honestly. William read the words twice. His throat tightened. "You've been documenting." "Yes." "Since when?" "Since Tuesday." He stared at her. Clara turned back a few pages. "Tuesday." Mason dropped lunch plate intentionally. No yelling. Accepted second plate. Remained at table for 5 minutes. "Wednesday." Luke hid cleaning supplies. Located all items. Complimented problem solving. One spray bottle later returned under kitchen sink without prompting. "Thursday." Both boys blocked laundry room. Waited calmly. Door unlocked after 12 minutes. No escalation. Friday morning. Luke sat at table near Noah voluntarily. Accepted water. Asked about dinosaur drawing. Almost smiled. Friday afternoon. Mason and Luke assisted Noah with block tower. Demonstrated patience, cooperation, and protective behavior. Mr. Carter witnessed interaction. William looked at the pages as if they were medical records from a hospital where his family had been quietly kept alive. "Why?" he asked. Clara's pen rested between her fingers. "Because people forget small changes when big trouble comes." William said nothing. She continued. "A courtroom will hear about the nannies who quit. The broken things. The shouting. The instability. Vanessa's attorney will make this house sound like a disaster. It was a disaster." "Yes," Clara said. "But it is not only that." She tapped the notebook gently. This shows movement. William pulled out the chair across from her and sat down slowly. The chair creaked in the silent kitchen. Clara's voice stayed calm. Children do not heal in a straight line. They test then soften. They break something then sit closer. They slam a door, then carry a plate to the sink. If no one writes those moments down, people only remember the noise. William looked toward the ceiling. Above them, Mason and Luke were sleeping behind separate doors. Maybe sleeping. Maybe staring into the dark. He looked back at the notebook. You think this can help in court? I think the truth can help. She closed the notebook, then opened another folder beside her. Inside were drawings. Noah's crooked dinosaur. A picture Luke had corrected without admitting he cared. A small flag from the tower with 3 stick figures beside a blockhouse. There were also school emails Mrs. Ellis had printed. Notes from teachers. Old incident reports. Recent observations. Missed calls from Vanessa. Gift receipts with no letters attached. Calendars showing birthdays where no visit happened. William touched one printed email. It was from Luke's teacher sent months earlier. Luke seems withdrawn and avoids group work. Please advise if there are changes at home. William had never answered it. His shame sat beside him like another person. Clara saw his face and did not soften the truth. We will need everything, she said. We? The word came out before he could stop it. Clara looked at him steadily. Yes, she said. We? Something in William gave way. Not dramatically. No tears yet. Just a quiet collapse of the idea that he had to stand in every room alone, powerful and useless. Clara continued, tomorrow ask the school for records. Attendance, behavior reports, teacher notes. Ask the therapist your son stopped seeing last year for her file. Ask Mrs. Ellis for the dates each nanny resigned. Not to shame the boys. To show the pattern. William nodded slowly. And you, Clara said, write down what you remember. He almost said he did not remember enough. But that was the problem. So he nodded again. What should I write? The truth. He looked at her. Clara's eyes did not move. Write the nights you missed. Write what changed after their mother left. Write what you failed to see. Judges hear a lot of parents claiming they did nothing wrong. They listen differently when one admits what he did wrong and explains what he is doing now. William breathed out. The old William would have hated that. Admitting failure felt like handing someone a knife. But the new William, the one who had sat on the rug and built dinosaur stairs, badly understood something else. His sons did not need him to look innocent. They needed him to be honest. So he took a blank sheet of paper from Clara's folder. He picked up a pen. For a long time he did not write. Then he put the date at the top. Under it he wrote one sentence. I confused providing with parenting. He stared at the words. They hurt. So he knew they were true. Clara kept writing in her notebook. William kept writing beside her. The rain went on. The mansion slept. But in the kitchen, under the warm yellow light, the case for Mason and Luke was being built, one small truth at a time. Not with lies. Not with performance. Not with money. With a second plate. A return spray bottle. A tower that did not fall. A father on the floor. A boy asking if he would be taken away. And a woman wise enough to know that when a family begins to heal, someone must protect the evidence before the world mistakes healing for chaos. The courthouse did not look like a place where children's hearts should be discussed. It was too clean. Too bright. Too cold. White walls. Metal detectors. Hard benches. Shoes clicking over polished floors. A flag in the corner standing perfectly still, as if even it knew not to move too much in a room where one sentence could change 2 boys' lives. William Carter arrived with Mason on his left and Luke on his right. He wore a navy suit, but not the kind he wore to win rooms. This one felt different. Less like armor. More like a promise he was trying to keep. Mason's hands were stuffed deep in his hoodie pocket. His jaw was locked. He had not spoken during the drive. Luke walked closer to William than usual, though he pretended not to. Every few steps, his shoulder brushed his father's sleeve. Each time William noticed. Each time he said nothing. Clara Bennett walked behind them with Noah. She carried a folder against her chest. Not a fancy legal binder. Not leather. Just a plain folder filled with small truths. Dates. Notes. School records. Drawings. A photograph of the block tower. Proof that healing had started before anyone in a courtroom could understand it. Noah held Benny the dinosaur under his arm and whispered, "Does the judge like dinosaurs?" Clara looked down at him. "I don't know, baby. Maybe Benny can help." Mason turned around. "Courts don't care about dinosaurs." Noah looked wounded for half a second. Then Luke said quietly, "Maybe they should." Mason looked at him. Luke looked away. But Noah smiled. That tiny smile gave the hallway one breath of warmth. Then Vanessa Carter appeared at the far end. She stood beside a tall woman in a gray suit, her attorney. Vanessa looked elegant, controlled. Her hair was perfect. Her coat was cream-colored. Her eyes went straight to the twins. "Mason," she said softly. "Luke." Mason looked at the floor. Luke gripped the strap of his backpack. William stepped forward just enough to remind everyone he was there. Vanessa's attorney extended a hand. "Mr. Carter." William shook it once. No warmth. No performance. The courtroom opened at 9:00. By 9:12 the boys were seated in a small side room with a child advocate because the judge did not want them listening to adults tear open their lives sentence by sentence. Mason did not want to go. "I want to hear," he said. William crouched in front of him, right there in the courthouse hallway. "I know. They're going to talk about us." "Yes. Then we should hear it." William nodded slowly. "The judge will hear from you too. But you don't have to sit through everything to matter." Mason stared at him. Luke whispered, "Are you coming back?" William's face changed. He reached out, not touching Luke without permission, just placing his hand between them. "I will be right outside when they're done with you." Luke looked at his hand. Then he nodded. Noah held Benny out toward Mason. "You can take him." Mason frowned. "I don't need a dinosaur." Noah shrugged. "He listens good." For 1 second Mason looked like he might snap back. Instead, he took Benny, roughly, carefully, both at once. Then he and Luke followed the advocate into the side room. The door closed. William stood still. Clara stood beside him. Noah's lower lip trembled. "Benny will come back, right?" Clara pulled him close. "Yes," she said. "Benny knows where home is." Inside the courtroom, Vanessa's attorney spoke first. She painted the Carter home as unstable. 9 nannies in less than a year. Repeated behavioral incidents. Emotional outbursts. A father with a demanding career. A household run by employees. A mother now ready, willing, and financially prepared to provide a calmer environment. The words sounded polished. Reasonable. Almost kind. That made them more dangerous. William sat still while each sentence landed. He did not interrupt. He did not shake his head. He did not look at Vanessa. When his attorney stood, he did not pretend the house had been perfect. That was the difference. He did not deny the nannies. He did not deny the broken things. He did not deny the mistakes. He placed them in order. First the mother left. Then the calls stopped. Then the boys changed. Then William failed to understand what their behavior was really saying. Then Clara arrived. Then the pattern began to shift. The judge, a woman in her late 50s named Judge Margaret Ellis, leaned forward slightly. "Mr. Carter," she said, "I want to hear from you directly." William stood. His hands were steady. His voice was not. "At first I thought I was doing enough," he said. "I provided the house, the school, the help, the food, the safety. But I confused providing with parenting." Vanessa looked down. William continued. "My sons were not simply misbehaving. They were grieving. They were testing every adult who came into their lives because one of the most important adults had already left." Vanessa's attorney rose. "Objection. Characterization." Judge Ellis raised one hand. "Overruled. He may speak to his understanding of his children." William swallowed. "I am not here to say I did everything right. I didn't. I missed too much. I hid in work. I let other people walk into rooms I should have entered myself." His eyes flicked toward Clara's folder. "But I am entering them now." The courtroom was silent. Then Clara was called. She walked to the witness chair with no drama, no nervous smile, no attempt to look important. She placed one hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, and sat straight-backed. Vanessa's attorney looked at her like she was already small. "Mrs. Bennett, you have worked for Mr. Carter for how long?" "Less than 2 weeks." "And in less than 2 weeks you believe you understand this family?" "No," Clara said. The attorney paused. Clara continued, "But I understand what I have seen." William's attorney handed her notebook to the clerk. Judge Ellis reviewed the pages. Tuesday. The dropped plate. No escalation. Wednesday. The hidden supplies. 1 item returned. Thursday. The blocked laundry room. Door unlocked after 12 minutes. Friday. Luke sitting near Noah voluntarily. Saturday. Mason and Luke helping build the block tower. Sunday. Family dinner. Father apologized. Boys remained at table. The judge turned another page. Her expression changed, not dramatically but enough. "These are detailed." Clara nodded. "Small things matter with children." Vanessa's attorney stood again. "Or small things can be exaggerated by an employee loyal to the person paying her." Clara looked at her calmly. "Yes, they can." The attorney seemed pleased. Then Clara added, "That is why I included dates, witnesses, school emails, and photographs. Not feelings alone. A quiet shift moved through the room. Then Vanessa took the stand. At first she did well. She cried softly. She admitted mistakes. She said she had been overwhelmed after the divorce, that Seattle had been temporary, that she always intended to rebuild a relationship with her sons. Then William's attorney began asking questions. What is Luke's current homeroom teacher's name? Vanessa blinked. I would have to check. What food does Mason refuse to eat? I'm not sure. What happened last year on October 14? Vanessa looked toward William. I don't know. Luke had a panic episode at school after a mother-son breakfast event. Were you contacted? Vanessa's face palled. I don't remember. What size shoes does Mason wear? Silence. What does Luke sleep with when he has nightmares? Vanessa's lips parted. No answer. The questions were not cruel. That made them worse. They were ordinary. Mother questions. Daily questions. The kind love should know because love had been there to learn them. Vanessa's hands shook in her lap. Finally the attorney asked. When was the last time you spent a full day alone with your sons? Vanessa looked down. The silence answered before she did. I don't know. In the back of the courtroom, Clara closed her eyes for 1 second. Not in victory. In sadness. Because a mother not knowing was not a triumph. It was a wound with a voice. After lunch, the child advocate returned with Mason and Luke's statements. The boys did not testify in open court. Judge Ellis read the summary quietly. Mason wanted to stay in his home. Luke wanted to stay with Mason. Both boys expressed fear of being taken away. Both boys said they were angry with their mother. Both boys said they were beginning to feel safer with their father. Then came the line that changed William's breathing. Both children identified Clara Bennett and her son Noah as safe people in the home. William lowered his head. Vanessa covered her mouth. Judge Ellis removed her glasses. For a moment she looked less like a judge and more like a grandmother who had seen too many adults arrive late and still asked children to open the door. When she spoke, her voice was firm. Custody is not a reward for regret. It is not a punishment for past mistakes either. This court is concerned with the stability, safety, and emotional needs of the children today. No one moved. Mason and Luke Carter have experienced abandonment, household instability, and emotional distress. However, the evidence before this court shows that their current home environment has begun to stabilize. Their father has acknowledged his failures and has taken steps toward direct involvement. The children have formed meaningful emotional anchors in the home. Vanessa started crying silently. Judge Ellis continued. Miss Carter, your desire to reconnect may be sincere, but sincerity does not erase absence. Reunification must be earned carefully, not forced suddenly. William closed his eyes. The judge's final decision came down like a door gently closing against a storm. Primary custody would remain with William. Vanessa would receive supervised visitation beginning gradually with therapeutic support. No immediate relocation. No forced transfer. The boys' voices would remain central in any future review. It was over. Not forever. But for today? And today mattered. Outside the courtroom, Mason and Luke stood when they saw William. Mason still held Benny by one leg. Noah gasped. Benny. Mason handed him back. He was annoying. Noah hugged the dinosaur. That means he helped. Luke looked at William. We're not leaving. William crouched in front of both boys. No, he said. You're coming home with me? Luke's face folded first. He stepped forward and pressed himself into William's chest. Mason stood rigid for 2 seconds longer. Then he broke too. William wrapped both arms around both boys and held on. No speech. No promise he could not keep. Just his arms. Just his sons. Just the courthouse hallway fading around them. Vanessa watched from several feet away, tears running down her face. Clara saw her pain. William saw it too. But Mason and Luke did not look back. Not yet. That would be another bridge, another day, another careful step. For now, they walked out together. William, Mason, Luke, Clara, Noah, and Benny. Past the metal detectors. Past the hard benches. Past the cold white walls. Into the afternoon light. No one cheered. No music swelled. But Luke reached for William's hand. Mason did not let go of his sleeve. And for the first time in 3 years, leaving a building did not feel like losing someone. It felt like going home. They walked out of the courthouse together, but the real healing began at home. Not all at once. Not like a movie where one hug fixes 3 years of pain. It came slowly. Mason still had hard days. Luke still went quiet when a phone rang too late at night. Vanessa's visits began carefully with a therapist in the room and boundaries the boys could trust. No one forced forgiveness. No one rushed their hearts. William changed first by staying. He made breakfast badly. He sat in the hallway after bedtime. He missed calls he once would have answered. He learned the names of teachers, favorite snacks, nightmares and small victories. Clara kept working, but she also started night classes for nursing. William paid her fairly, not as charity but as respect. Noah became the little brother Mason, and Luke never knew they needed. The three boys built towers, planted flowers, argued over dinosaurs, and slowly turned that cold mansion into something warmer. A home. Broken children do not always ask for love with soft voices. Sometimes they ask with anger, silence, mess and fear. But underneath all of it they are asking one thing. Will you stay when I am hard to love? The people who change lives are not always the loudest. Sometimes they are the ones who bring a second plate, sit on the floor and refuse to give up. If this story touched your heart, tell me in the comments who was the person who stayed for you when life got hard. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next story may remind someone that healing is still possible.